Hello everyone, I'm SightlessKombat, accessibility consultant and gamer without sight, and today I welcome you to a second unboxing in pretty much as many weeks. Thanks to the great folks at Sony PlayStation PR, I am able to unbox, I can't quite believe I'm saying this, just slide it into the center of frame, the PlayStation 5. We actually have a method of telling which way up this box goes, so there's a handle on the top, which is very convenient. We're just going to dive right into this, I think. I'm going to cut the seal that's at the top, at the front. Normally I'd peel this off, but if we very gently, hopefully that should just inserted a blade into the gap. It's not going, this is, oh there we go, I can just peel this off. There we go, that sticker can be out of the way. Okay, that's just an adhesive circle. For those of you who've read my reviews, you will know what that means. We probably won't need that blade now, so we're going to open the top of the box and we're going to use the handle. This is going to be interesting because the sides of the box have this sort of flaps that fold inwards. There we go. Hold the box with one hand and lift the inner box with the other. Just going to put the external packaging out of the way. And this is just a tab, so just push, there we go. Very easy packaging to open this. I'm really interested to see what the, oh no, we have, wait, do we have boxception here? Actually, we have a printed leaflet first that we can pull upwards. I'm going to get sighted assistants quickly to verify what these are. So that's the safety guide, the quick start guide, and the guarantee, so we can leave those out of the way. And oh, this isn't actually box within a box, which is fortunate, but there is a flap underneath. Oh, actually, let's take this box out of the one it's already in. Now how can we, I'll just close that back up, there we go. Now the question is, there's no, oh hang on, I see, there's a hole underneath this box that we can hopefully use to lift it. There we go. So if I put that, move this, there we go. We should still be good. We'll come back to the bigger box in a minute, but in here, in this small oblong box, we have on the left hand side, because I've opened it away from me, on the left hand side we have a flap that opens upwards and to my right, which reveals what looks to be a base. Just trying to find the, there we go, find the opening at the top. So that's this, if you can see that on camera. If I just turn it around, there's like sort of what looks like handles at the top, which is interesting. So be curious to see how that works later on. It also looks like it could be a controller charger, but that's probably me just overthinking it at this point. Oh, it looks like this part moves, so I'm not quite sure what's going on there. So that'll be interesting to look at once I set all of this up. But if I just discard the wrapper for that, we have the HDMI cable, which looks very very new. It's got cable ties on it, so that's cool. That's very useful. Likely HDMI 2.1 to be compatible with the 8K features. And if we close that part of the box up, because that's the part of the oblong package up, because that's all that's in there. In the other side, I've just had a quick look, we have in slightly different plastic material, we have, if I pull this out, 1 second, just need to extricate it from the wrappings because it's quite tightly in there. There we go, we have the DualSense controller. This is my first time seeing one of these in person. I've read a fair amount about it. Triggers feel solid. The equivalent of the bumpers on an Xbox controller, the RNL1 feels solid, sticks feel good. Face buttons feel kind of they feel alright, they're pretty good. D-pad is pretty much the standard shape for a PlayStation D-pad that you would expect, if slightly clumped together, which is interesting. And there are buttons on here. I think the PlayStation button's changed, unless I'm very much mistaken. Now it feels slightly different. Instead of being a circle, there's a button where the PlayStation button was that is now a shape rather than anything else, a specific shape that I can't quite describe at the moment, but there is a button below that as well, a long thin button right at the very bottom of where the analog sticks are, sort of in between there, and there's the menu and share, the options and share buttons, or at least buttons in those locations, the touchpad and a USB port on the back. Just turn it over. The finish is really nice actually on this as well. The fronts of the grips are slightly different. They kind of curve. They're not rounded off completely. They're kind of curved but into a flat surface. And there's I can't entirely tell what that port's meant to be. I think that's meant to be a headphone jack. But as I said, there will be more details in my full review when I post that of how this controller works and everything. As I said, there's a touchpad as well. If you've used a PlayStation 4 controller, it will just feel like an evolution of that design. And that is all for the... Oh, hang on, there's a cable I missed. Aha, in between the oblong section on the left-hand side and the controller area on the right-hand side of the small oblong box, we have a power cable, which, interestingly enough, is the same type of cable that the Xbox Series X and S, well, the One S and the One X, all of those consoles end up using. So that's all tied up, but that's very good to see. There's not a difference in power cables now. That's going to be very useful for me, I think, if the cables aren't actually, in fact, different in terms of their, their power consumption and everything like that. So let's put that box out of the way. Lots of apologies for the loud bang in the background there. So we have cables, controllers. Let's just move these out of the way so we can move the box back into shot. Really liking the packaging so far, though. It's very solid indeed. Just put the controller on there. Not that it's necessarily meant to go on there, but we will come to that later. Let's move the box back into frame. Fold the flap down just so that we can look inside. Ah, there's the console. So we have, again... Oh, they're not foam inserts this time, though. They are sort of polystyrene... Not polystyrene? What am I thinking? Egg box holder type designs. So we're going to lay this flat if we can. Just tip the box over just so that we can actually get the console out. And this is going to be quite the operation. Oh, actually we can just hold the console. Yeah, there we go. Hold the console in one hand, hold the box with the other, and then switch hands as we very gently pull the unit out on its holders, like we did with the other one, the Xbox Series X, when we unboxed that not too long ago. And so now comes the rather sort of careful part of the operation, where we place one hand underneath, and so my right hand is underneath, and I'm moving the inserts out of the way. Put that on the floor. The egg box type packaging around it that's holding it very securely in place, I will admit. So that's two. And now we have, it's a very odd design of console, a very boxy sort of approach, but with a gradient to it. So now I need to find the point where you can actually unwrap this. Aha, there we go. So there's an opening at the side. It's not even sealed with tape, it's just apparently just a big sheet that they've wrapped around it. Being, again, very gentle so that we can unfold this as we go. There we go. And I'm going to pause for 1 second, as I learnt from the previous review, and double check that the console is in fact the right way round, or rather what way round the console needs to be, due to the very, very unorthodox design. So this is how you'd think the PlayStation 5 would actually be presented, with the disc drive sitting towards the top of the console as I'm looking at it, and the two buttons that are presumably power and eject being on the sort of middle area of this, below the disk drive. Unfortunately, that's not the case. The actual way you have to present it, if I very, very gently do this, is flip it over. But there are actually two ways of showing this off. I've just spent a little while with Sighted Assistants to figure this out, and I will do my best to try and explain it. But so there is a small hole, small gap, let me just support this, right below my finger. I'm not sure how well that's going to come out on camera, but there's a small circle which is actually a sort of a plug for a screw, and that screw is supplied as part of the base that I mentioned earlier. So this small circular object. Now, if I can remember this right, the way this works is you put the base so that the handles, as it were, these two hooks, go. If I put it up like this, then hopefully you can see it. Yeah, there we go. That should be solid enough. And then we would clip this into here. You would then have taken the screw from the very small compartment that it's in, and then you would screw that. You'd take the cap out that I mentioned previously, and then you would put the screw through the bottom of the base into where the cap is. So that would then allow you to position it vertically, somewhat like, hang on a minute, just need to try and get the orientation accurate. It's not the easiest of designs to work with at the moment, but maybe that's just me not being used to it. There we go. It would look somewhat like that. So the disk drive is at the bottom of where the console is, and the power and eject buttons are similarly positioned with a USB port at the top. However, if you want to position it horizontally, as I would personally, given I'm not necessarily a fan of consoles standing on their sides, you have to position the disk drive at the bottom. So, oh, 1 second, the power cable's in the way. Let me move that ever so slightly. There we go. So you position it with disk drive at the bottom, but you have to take this base, rotate it round, hold the outer edge, rotate it round, I think. Oh, actually that's as far as it goes. So it should be this. So if you look at the back of the console, where all the, hang on, there we go, USB ports, the Ethernet port, the HDMI, and the power cable are, between those two USB ports, one of the handles goes at the back. So if I move it underneath, there we go. There are actually visual markings for this on the back. Unfortunately, there's no way to determine where those are without any sighted assistance. This is a very complicated maneuver to actually do, just because of the sheer size and positioning involved. So, is that right? Do you reckon? It looks right. So essentially what I've done, I apologize for not commentating that as clearly as I could have. I've positioned one of the handles, the clips, between the USB ports at the back, and then the other one, the one on the right hand side of it, if you were looking at it with the handles at the top, is in between a couple of the what look like vent areas, but that clips in relatively securely underneath. So that is at the back of the console. So if I turn it round, so you can now see the disk drive is at the bottom and the stand is at the back supporting it. That being said, this was a very, very complicated positioning system to work with initially, but I think you'll only really use it once, I think, or most of the time you'd only use it once. But in any case, the design is really interesting. I'm not entirely sure what to make of it yet, but it's a very different design. It kind of looks like the plastic has been folded around the internals. It kind of looks like it's sort of a sheet that's been folded around and cut to size for the console, because there's, the console itself is curved on the sort of inner layer, but then the outer edges are square, sort of more square, which is an unusual choice, but I like the kind of abstract look it's going for. It's definitely different. But yeah, more info will be coming soon from me on on the accessibility side of things and actual hardware impressions and whatnot. So stay tuned for any of those kinds of things. But this has been my unboxing for the PlayStation 5, and I'd like to again thank Sony PR for sending me one of these before launch. This is an amazing opportunity, and I can't wait to see what the next generation of gaming holds on the PlayStation side of things. I've been SightlessKombat. Thank you very much for watching. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe.